What's up, guys? Keep It Wausome podcast. I'm BC Kowalski, your host. Welcome back for another episode. I've got a great one for you today. We're going to introduce our guest in just a second, but just want to give you a little shout out to our three sponsors, to Scotty's Ale House and Eatery. Thanks so much for your support, guys. And also to Campbell Haynes Menswear. Those guys keep me stylish, so I appreciate them. And Verve Salon. No matter what your hair type or skin type, they got something for you. Verve Salon. Thanks all my sponsors, appreciate it so much. So today I'm doing things a little differently. I'm fully vaccinated now, and I am in Skeeter's Woodshop, excuse me, read that wrong, right. With Scott Laub. And Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm well, how are you? Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, of course, man.
Welcome to the woodshop.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So I guess to start off with, when I came to visit you last, you had just sold, I think you had sold all your drums and your motorcycles, I think.
Yeah.
And you started this wood shop. You kind of talk about how that came about.
Well, I guess the first thing when COVID hit, I work at a paper mill, so I work a swing shift, which is all 3 shifts in a month.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I get one weekend off a month, so when that hit, it really didn't change my job at all. But my home life was changed, so being a guy that's not a stranger to a tool belt, I just chose to come out in the garage and start tinkering and screwing around with what I had to make a couple cutting boards for my sisters for Christmas.
Gotcha.
And it started to progress. People started seeing what I was doing, whether it be a neighbor or a family member, and I tried keeping it a secret.
Interesting. Why'd you keep it a secret?
Well, I wanted to have it a surprise for them as a Christmas gift.
Oh, I gotcha.
And it kind of backfired on me and turned into a full-blown business.
Wow.
But shortly before that, I got sober.
Yeah.
For the first time in my life since the age of 18.
That's amazing.
And I'm 51. So this is the longest I've been sober in my life as an adult. And there was a lot of triggers involved with that.
Yeah.
One being a Harley guy.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us know every time you drive past a bar, there's a shit ton of Harleys in there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
That would make it hard for me to maintain that Harley lifestyle. And I've been a musician since the age of 18, or 14 for that matter. I learned how to play the drums, early in high school, freshman year. So spending 20 years as a musician, trying to make it big, coincides with drinking, partying. So yeah, I made the choice to ask for help, get healthy, and find a way to stay sober. But I had to do that through a series of removals, which is the Harley lifestyle, the music lifestyle, because I don't think I made a dime behind my drum set in 20 years sober.
Right.
So.
And I remember I asked you about that because I know for a lot of people, music would be a thing that they would jump to after drinking, but for you, it was a trigger because, that was the two things went together.
Right, hand in hand. I mean,
Right.
Whether we were recording or playing live or at rehearsal, the first thing the band member does is poke his head through the door with a case of beer,
Right.
at rehearsal, or on the rider, when you play some of these larger venues, which I've had my fair share of in the past, but I've also played in front of 12 people.
Right.
So, I mean, it just didn't matter. There was alcohol involved 100% of the time, at being a musician, or that style of musician, because I know there are musicians that are sober and weren't at first, but got sober. And I guess I just chose that music wasn't that important to me anymore, so I needed to get rid of it so I could maintain sobriety without being triggered, to make it easier on myself.
Yeah. So how long ago was that?
I entered rehab in July of 2020.
July 2020.
So that was my sober date, July 17th of 2020.
So you're coming up on a year.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit 10 months here real quick.
Months, wow.
And I've never felt healthier
Yeah.
or inside and out. You know.
Yeah. Congratulations, by the way.
I appreciate that.
That's a big step. Yeah.
I appreciate that. My family appreciates it. My kids, my kids never saw a fall down, angry, typical alcoholic man that comes home, kicks the door open, beats the wife, kicks the dog. They never saw that. They saw the life of the party guy, the jokester, the musician, the guy with all the friends and all the toys, and throwing parties and having cookouts for 30 people and a keg of beer. But that was just me as a person. That's who I was. My I guess personality is attention. I mean, that's where I got it from, and I learned a lot of that through rehab too. So, why was I drinking like that for all those years, or why did I become a musician? Well, I found out in rehab it's because of childhood trauma. You wear a mask, and that mask sometimes is a big finger in the air to say, look at me now.
So I bet all that time you never thought about that type of thing, huh?
Not really. I just knew that it was what I wanted to do. When I first saw Motley Crue in 1980, whatever it was, 1983, as a 13-year-old kid, I'm like, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing that. That is, the hair on my arms is standing up now, just remembering how I felt when I saw Tommy Lee play those drums,
Yeah, so why the drums really stuck out to you, huh?
Yeah, and I think just because of the groove, the Zeppelin, the Bonham-esque groove behind everything, the Tommy Lee show-off, the heavy 4/4 beat, and I tried playing guitar as a kid, and I could play a few songs around the campfire right now, but nothing to impress anybody.
Sure.
But drums was my thing, and I think it was just because of the beat, the backbone, the hard driving bass, before bass was a real thing,
I can't remember, were you from Wausau or are you from...
I grew up here in Wausau. Yeah. I graduated from Wausau West, class of 88. And I really didn't live for any real length of time anywhere else but here. I spent a short period of time in Milwaukee for a few years, where I made my mark, and that really made me feel good. And it moved from there to a short stint in Atlanta and a short stint in New Orleans. But after that, it was right back to home. I came right back to Wausau to live with my mom and, regroup, because I was technically let go. I was let go from the record, not really the record label, more of a touring company.
Yeah, I was gonna say we should back up, because how did your musical career take off? Like, how did that?
But here in town, as a late teenager, I was in a band with a bunch of local musicians and high school mates called High Water.
That sounds familiar.
And it was this was in 90-ish, 90, 91, 92, somewhere in there, because I was barely able to drink. I think I was one of the only that were able to get beer at that point in time, because I would have been the oldest, I think. And then it changed to a band called Kickstart, which kind of made its mark here in town. And then I guess it kind of I had an opportunity to move to Milwaukee, and I took that by the horns and I ran with it. And within 6 weeks of living in Milwaukee, I had a gig with a band that was playing out 3, 4, 5 nights a week.
That's a real working band.
And it was a lucky break. Some guys go down there and just get lost in the mix, fast.
Sure.
And I was a young kid, long hair, skinny, Bon Jovi-ish, or Janie Lane from Warrant, or Vince Neil. I had that kind of look going on back then.
Was that the band style?
Yeah, it was actually, believe it or not, it was a Cajun Zydeco band.
Oh, interesting.
And I played the Well, it was a service tray. It was a TV tray with pots and pans and a waitress tray tipped upside down with an SM58 next to it
Really?
for the snare. The kick drum was a regular drum kick pedal on the backside of a garbage can, like a 12-gallon garbage can that you would find in a kitchen with a 57 wrapped in it in a towel. You just lay it right down in there, and when you hit that kick drum through that speaker, it sounded like a kick drum. You know, there was really no real instruments outside of the harmonica and the guitar. The rest were homemade. Washboards, stand-up bass, the wash tub bass.
No, it was just the style of the band. That's what they did.
Yep, and we played out, I think, I still have the mailers that we sent out in like 93, 94. We played out 36 shows in a month.
Wow.
You know, there are guys that don't play out 36 times in a year.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's more than once a day.
Right. Some days it was like a Humane Society fundraiser during the day, and then a wedding at night, or Milwaukee County Zoo during the day, right out where the regular people walk past the polar bears or whatnot. We'd play right there on the street, if you will, you know, right inside the Milwaukee Zoo a couple times during the summer. We'd get hired to do that.
That's interesting. That I don't think you could do that. I don't think you could work that much around here.
No.
You just couldn't keep yourself that busy. No
You'd
matter
burn out really fast. You might be able to do it for a month.
I mean, you think you can get those gigs though here?
Not in this town, I don't think. You'd
so.
have to travel quite a ways.
I feel like you gotta be in a Milwaukee or Madison to be that kind of prolific.
Yeah, from here you would have to travel from Eau Claire to Appleton to be able to do that. You know, both directions, to be able to play every day of the month.
So that must have led somewhere, huh?
It did. We cut an album, which was self-funded. It wasn't a record label at that point at all.
What was the band called?
The band was called John the Conqueror.
John the Conqueror.
And John the Conqueror is an idol in the voodoo world of New Orleans, which is like a good luck charm.
So a lot of these guys from down there?
Yeah, one, Paul Chemnitz was from, I do believe from Milwaukee, but lived in New Orleans, and that's kind of how we ended up down there. We did like an East Coast self-funded tour and ended up staying in New Orleans for about 8 weeks, pretty much living out of the van and playing on the street.
Wow.
But as a 22, 23-year-old guy, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd say that's fun times in your
Yeah, you know, and that was all right, but there was a lot of sketchy shit. I mean, that wasn't, it was fun, but it was still sketchy. Very sketchy.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this band cut an album and
yeah, we cut an album, and I joined a couple different bands. I was probably playing in 4 or 5 at that time. One that didn't really play out. One that actually opened for Bush at the Eagles Ballroom. At that point in time, Bush was huge. You know, the band Bush was massive back then in the early 90s. We did a show with the Smashing Pumpkins before they were really big.
That's cool.
And I got to meet a lot of cool people that some people would never even get a chance to even rub shoulders with.
Yeah, like you were telling me about meeting Billy Corgan.
Yeah, I met him at a place called the Unicorn. I had a recording studio, more or less a room where I rehearsed my drum parts. Up above in what used to be called the Sydney High building. And
this is still Milwaukee?
It's not there anymore, and because the landscape has changed so much down there, I don't even remember exactly where it was, because they've rerouted some of the roads. You know, there's not even the intersection where it used to be.
Oh, wow.
You know, so, but it was overlooking the water, right off of Water Street on the west side of the river. And I went down to the bar. The guy Gus owned the place called the Unicorn, and it was an underground bar. I mean, it was literally in the basement, and it was dark and dirty and stunk like puke and piss and beer, and I mean, it was a cool place. I mean, it was, and that, I'm not kidding you. That was a really cool place. And Gus says, "Hey, you know, how you doing, Scott?" And I come downstairs, and he said he wanted to introduce me to his friend Bill. And I'm like, hey Bill, how's it going? You know? And he had long hair at the time. This is before he went bald, or we're all going bald.
Right.
But we we shook hands and drank a beer or two or whatever it was, and went about our day, and ended up, having an opening gig with those guys in the Chicagoland area, because that's where they're from.
Yep.
And that was just impressive,
Yeah, in fact, I only learned recently how critical the Chicago scene was to the alternative era. It was kind of like, kind of started in Seattle, but then all the record producers were like, all right, let's just go find all these garage bands and sign them. So, they hit up like Atlanta and some other cities, but Chicago was a big one.
Chicago's a hub for that stuff.
It was a big one. There was a lot of bands in the 90s. It was a pretty prominent scene.
Yeah, and I was in the long hair, the whole Cajun Zydeco part of my life was the super alter ego, because I wasn't that guy. I wasn't the guy that played Van Morrison and the Banana Boat song. I wasn't that guy at heart. I was Motley Crue and Rat and Warrant and Poison. So, and then I got to be friends with Chips Enough from the band called Enough's Enough, out of Chicago also, which was a connection through the Billy Corgan thing. So that was cool. We got to play Summerfest all the time for a few years in a row. We got to play some of the big, huge Budweiser celebrations in St. Louis because of who we were and who we were connected with. It was about who you knew.
Yeah.
But in '95, that all came to a halt for me. I was well into drinking. I was well into using other things. I was never a pot guy, because you can't, you can't be a drummer high. That's kind of a relaxer, or, and back then, pot wasn't.
Kind of depends on the personality, right? Like,
sure.
I know some people, like, I know people that get high and go build things. And
sure.
They just, for some reason, some people it gives them a lot of energy. Others, it's like.
Yeah, that's not me, and some of the bands that I played with a band called Gasoline Heart, which was a hard rock and heavy band, and they at times would have to look back and go, hey, Laub, slow down, we're gonna run out of songs, because I was on things that made you go fast. It wasn't things that slowed me down at all. But in '95, it all came to a halt, and I moved back to Wausau.
So what happened?
Well, it was more or less let go. A breakup with a girl. The band said, we're going to take some time. We're going to record. This isn't going to bring in any money. And I'm like, well, and then I'm out. I'm here to play. I worked at the Water Street Brewery as a daytime bar manager. And I left that job to pursue the music career. When it started to ramp up and give me the opportunity to make a few $100 a week, or at least even a show. Some of them were $125 a show, playing out 4 or 5 nights a week. Shit, that's good money when you're playing for cash.
Yeah, especially in the 90s.
Right, absolutely. And a lot of that, you drank for free. And if you got in good with the bar owner, he's, gave you a little something on the side, and maybe an extra $20 tip for everybody in the band, because the night was great.
About what, 3-4 nights was probably your rent back then, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that covered everything, so the rest of the month is all party.
Yeah.
Really, that's just how it went, But when that decision was made, the combination of a breakup and, fuck her, she left me or she don't want me, and now the band is done and we ran our course. The other bands weren't making money. The Cajun band was making money all the time.
Right.
But you can't survive on music. You got to have money to back it up. So I said, I was pissed off and bitter and angry, and I moved home and lived in the basement of my mom's house that she was renting. I was the superstar of the family, living in Milwaukee in a big place, and she's up here renting. I grew up pretty poor. And she held me to a pretty high pedestal, because look at her boy now, but, come to find out, well, she's the reason why I did all that, and she's the reason why I partied so hard, and, therapy led me into that dug deep into my past, and why did you do all this stuff, and why did you have to have that chip on your shoulder to make it, to make it big, or try to at least, so you can say fuck you.
Right.
You know, look at me now. Of all the shit you did to me, I still made it. You know. So yeah, 95 was it. You know, that was the backup version of it. You know, that was kind of the end of my story for a period of time. You know, I ended up meeting a woman who I'm married to now, and having kids and settling down for a few years. But then in 99, I got the itch again. I really needed to get back into the music scene. I was self-employed as a contractor, building, remodeling homes, building garages and decks and windows and replacing stuff, and that freed my weekends up because I was the boss.
Oh yeah.
So I could do whatever I wanted to. If I wanted to take Friday off and go golfing, I could.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So was that something that was part of your background too?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up, you know, in Milwaukee. A lot of times, if you got a tool belt, you can get a job wherever.
Sure.
If you show up to a job site with work boots on and a tool belt, as long as that tool belt's not brand new, you can get a job right now, you know, for cash, you know, and that freed up a lot of time for me. So I wasn't tied down to a night job where I'm stuck waitering or something till midnight and I'm supposed to be out jamming in a band,
Right.
you know, so, but, you know, once 95 rolled around, the kids got here, and then 99 came through, and I got the itch, and I joined a working band already that ran an ad for a drummer needed, and I was brought on immediately. I didn't really know anybody in the band as a person. I knew some of them as musicians, but then it kind of morphed its way into me running the show. For some reason, it kind of always did that, you know. I wasn't happy with the amount of gigs we were getting. Then I started making some phone calls, and it pissed off the guy that hired me, so he said, "Fuck you, I quit. Take it." So I said, "All right, let's buy new equipment." You know, so I went and I got rid of all the old fog hat subwoofers that were this tall and this wide that you needed a U-Haul truck, and I upgraded them to the ones you could get that are this big that are just as loud. Only they cost a little more, and you know,
can actually carry them.
right, you can get them in and out.
Yeah.
So the fog hat equipment went to the wayside, and Scotty Laub upgraded it to what I thought was, well, which was the cream of the crop of equipment back then, dealing with Wausome Music Center and Neil Zunker.
Oh yeah.
You know, he and I go way back.
Yeah.
I've spent tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars at his store, and I continue to do so today.
Yep.
Well,
I know Neil well.
right now I don't, but
Yeah. Right.
but you know, he helped me out, and I turned it into a band called Chaos, K-A-O-S,
Oh yeah.
and we opened for every big name band that came into town. We also played in every shitty pub that's around here. You know, I mean, we did it all, but
That's
we
what
all
you
had
do,
full-time
right?
we've had full-time jobs and careers, so we did it on the weekends. But we would play out 40, 50 times a year. So
Nice.
we were a busy band, you know, and that was in the time of Storm. That was a big band out of Tomahawk.
Yep, I remember them.
5 Mile Scream, my good buddy Bob Hallis and Jay Hughesby. Those guys were in that band, and we went hand in hand. A lot of it was rivalry, but it was friendly. You know, it wasn't angry, you know. But, you know, at that point in time, those were the top 3 bands in the area. Storm, Chaos, and 5 Mile Scream. You know, we definitely kicked ass and took names, and we kind of made sure we didn't double up on songs. They're doing that song, we don't want to do that song.
Oh.
We'll keep our set list different, you know. And we did that up until 04. We did some pretty big shows. We opened up for Trapped and Crossfade back when they were popular in the early 2000s. We did Tomahawk Fall Ride, I think 4 years in a row. You know, play right out on the street, and you got 40,000 people back, you know, right on Main Street.
Yeah,
there.
that's a crazy thing.
Yeah. You know, and we did a few big shows, but we also did a lot of shitty little bitty shows, which is okay too. That's where you get that's where you break in the new songs.
Yep.
You know, where you do it.
It's your testing ground.
Right. Yeah. Just like a comedian, or you know, I mean, yeah, you got to have a place to try it out. And then in 2004, it all ended. The singer that I had, Brant Lofnan, He was a young 20-year-old kid who could play guitar and scream. I mean, he could hit the notes. We were all 30 plus at that time. And we brought him on, and we really kicked ass for quite a few years. You know, or not. I shouldn't say quite a few. For a few years there, it was a big period of time where we were one of the top bands there was. And then he wanted to go back to school, so I said, well, then that's it. You know, we're done. You know, I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. The kid wants to go back to school. He's 20. Well, who am I to tell you no?
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to be a big brother to him and say, go do it, dude. You know, go ahead. So we gave that up completely and went about our separate ways. And I really don't see anybody in the band at all anymore besides Brant once in a while. We're still close friends, and we're Harley guys. But you know, I don't see them at all. I've pretty much mellowed out, and you know, I just went about my thing. You know, I worked the swing shift at the paper mill, and it just wouldn't allow a band anyway. So that's when I decided to go back into blue collar for good, and be a family guy, I guess. Family man, husband, dad, you know.
So the music went away. That was one of the triggers, but the alcohol kind of stayed, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Paper mill life is it's a culture. You work a 16-hour shift, you come home, you crank 7 beers out of the refrigerator and go to bed for 6 hours and go back to work for 16. It's not smart. It's not healthy.
That's a long time to work, though.
Right. You know,
something like that.
Absolutely. And especially around a machine that'll spit you out and turn you into mist without missing a beat.
Right.
You know, and it's happened. You know, there's people that die in a paper mill for putting their hand in the wrong spot. It didn't take your finger off. It sucked you all the way in and didn't even care.
Right.
You know, and I did that for a lot of years, you know, and my drinking was getting not just out of hand, it was just getting to be a normal thing. Every day when I'm not working, everything continued to revolve around consuming a drink. If it was nice out, oh man, let's have one.
Yeah.
You know, if it's rainy and shitty and cold, well, fuck, might as well drink.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, everything's a
absolutely
conduit.
Didn't matter whether it was good or bad. It was a reason to drink, and that was the culture that I lived in. Central Wisconsin. It was an acceptable habit to have.
So what was the trigger to leave? Because it doesn't sound like it impacted your family life, or at least you said they didn't experience like you didn't come home and kick the dog and
right
you know, the kids or stuff like.
In 2012, I ended up getting a divorce.
Oh, okay.
My wife had enough, and it was completely due to me being a self-absorbed, arrogant dick. And I mean, I see it now that I've, you know, looking back on it, I see it, I understand it. We ended up getting a divorce. I was fucking crushed.
Yeah.
You know, we were together 17 years with 2 kids together, and I was fucking crushed. And I fell, it's like watching a plane crash. You know, nobody around me can do anything except watch it go down.
Right.
You know, maybe help pick up the pieces at the end after it hits the ground in a ball of fucking fire. But for 4 years, I ran like a silverback gorilla in the jungle, wild as I could get, doing whatever the fuck I wanted to do, and it was taking a toll on my system.
So you kind of went to the extreme before you pulled back.
Yep, I had to. I think that's everybody's case. Whether you're in any addiction, there's a rock bottom. My rock bottom was that. Although I didn't have any attempt to stop it from happening, I continued to feed the fire. Not very intelligently either. You know, I'm a grown man. I'm in my late 40s, and I'm a divorced guy. So what? Everybody. I mean, there's millions of us that are divorced. Fucking deal with it. You know, for some reason I couldn't. I couldn't deal with it without numbing the pain. And I made some very shitty decisions in that 4-year window right after the divorce. I made some very good decisions, and you know, some happy mistakes, like Bob Ross would say.
Right.
You know, I mean, I've made
Yeah.
some happy mistakes, but I've also made some very foolish decisions. And I decided to make a choice and get out of this decision that I made, and leave. I left this certain scenario that I was in for the 4 years that I was divorced. And I moved in with my sister. Thank God, her and her husband have a large enough family home that they could support their big brother. You know, and how much of an ego blow is that? To go from, you know, they say people peak at a certain age. I peaked at 23 in my head, you know.
Right.
I was a rock star back in the day. Now I'm living in my sister's fucking attic because I can't handle being divorced anymore. So I'm going through the motions of drinking, working, sob story, sitting in by myself in my underwear watching a little TV because that's all I got. You know, I left everything behind from what I left, the situation I was in that I left.
So it sounds like you were living somewhere and wasn't a good.
No, it wasn't a headspace. It wasn't a good headspace. It was a very nice attic. Trust me, it was a room. It was an apartment above a garage. So it wasn't an attic in my garage here, but it was, my headspace was terrible, and it was like the would have been the winter or the anniversary of my 20th anniversary, or ish. 21st anniversary or something.
Now the situation that you came from to go to your sister's house, is that something you don't want to talk about?
Well, it would probably hurt some feelings if I mentioned, you know. But anybody that sees this and knows me, they'll know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And it wasn't a terrible 4-year window. It was just a very terrible time.
Gotcha.
You know, for me. You know, I just made some very poor decisions monetarily, just doing very foolish things.
So so would you consider having to move in with your sister and her family? That was sort of your rock bottom?
Yeah, but the rock bottom didn't stop. It went down there, and then it stayed there for a long period of time. But I was only living there a short period of time when I started getting messages from my ex-wife with pictures of our children and marriage, wedding pictures and anniversary pictures, and I was taken back by that, and I was touched because it was my fault. The divorce was my fault, but my ex-wife was having second thoughts or remorseful thoughts about being divorced from me and the family not being together. So the opportunity came for her and I to get back together, and I immediately jumped on that opportunity because why would I not? You'd have to be, I mean, for lack of a better term, partially retarded. You know, I know that's a bad word to use, but you'd have to not have your cognitive abilities in your head to not want to do that, to have your family back together. So I did, and we did get back together. We rekindled our marriage. We worked out our differences. We went to counseling individually and together. We read the books about remarrying your ex. We read all the statistics of it, and the statistics of remarrying your ex are better than getting married in the first place.
Really?
Believe it or not.
I didn't know that.
Because you've seen it.
That
you
makes
know
sense.
what you're getting into. You're not bullshitting. You're not lying. You're not putting on this first date persona.
That's true.
You know.
That's a good point.
And we ended up getting remarried to each other on our 23rd anniversary. So that was pretty cool. I mean, I'm very proud of that, and I'm very cool with the idea of even saying that to other people, you know, because there's not a whole lot of people that I know that had that opportunity, but as soon as you mention it to somebody, they say, oh, my brother did that, or my Uncle Joe did that, and they've been together 51 years now or something, you know.
How long ago was this? Yeah, you got remarried?
Would have been 2019.
2019.
Yeah.
So we still haven't hit that point where you wanted to get
Mhm.
sober. Like you were still
No.
drinking through all this.
Oh yeah, and I was using that as a crutch too because I felt very guilty, and I felt very humbled not in a good way, embarrassed almost because now I'm the one back in the family, trying to rekindle my relationship with my kids, trying to be the good husband that I really never really was.
Yeah.
But I'm really the same person because I really wasn't as good of a man when we got back together as I was when she left me. You know, and I'll be the first to say that. I was not a good person. I was a fucking animal. And I came from the bar life, the Harley life, the drinking life of daily consumption to a home where my wife would be happy with a glass of wine a month. And both kids living here that don't really drink.
That's culture shock then.
Absolutely. I was the odd man out.
So what led you to? I'm really curious now. What led you to decide? You know what? I gotta be sober.
My wife asked me to quit drinking, and I told her to take a flying fuck. Yeah.
Really?
And I moved out.
Really?
I moved out. I got an apartment down the road, right off Grand Avenue. Signed a 1-year lease. Bought all new furniture. It was a very argument-free breakup for what it was. I spent 12 days in that apartment before the world crashed in on me. And I needed to either get help or I'm going to kill myself.
Tell me more. The world crashed in on you. Explain
Yeah, I was in an apartment by myself.
Yeah.
At midnight with nobody around, no friends, with a bottle of booze and a TV show on by myself.
It just kind of hit you.
Yep. It was either going to be eat a bullet on my brand new couch or get help. What am I doing? I walked out on my wife. You know, we just got remarried.
Right.
And rekindled a marriage, got the family back together, and now I told her to take a flying fuck because I'd rather drink than appease her request. So I uncocked the pistol, I put it back down, I took a chug off the bottle of booze or the beer or whatever it was I was drinking, probably booze.
So you weren't speaking metaphorically. You literally had it
Right
there.
I was
Wow.
there. And that's not easy to say because I get choked up just thinking about it.
Yeah, man.
But I made a phone call off a phone search. I didn't have a laptop. I don't have a laptop. Everything I do is on the phone. So I made a quick search of like detox or something. I need to get help. So I did. I made the phone call and I talked to one person and they said, hey, are you going to be okay? And I said, no, I'm not okay. I'm not going to be okay unless I get help. And they're like, why don't you go, take a drink of water, splash some water on your face, and we'll call you back. And I'm like, you motherfuckers, you're going to call me back? And I was really pissed off. But the phone rang, not more than 90 seconds later. And it said, hey, this is Jack from so-and-so. How you doing? Let's talk this out. Tell me what's going on. And I did. I told him. That next morning I went to work and bought plane tickets to rehab in Florida. And that took 12 days. 12 days of me living in that apartment by myself. I slept in a brand new bed 12 times, completely alone, before the world just shut down.
Wow.
You know, and reality came fast and hard and relentless. So I left. I told her the next day. I said, babe, I'm going to rehab. She's like, whatever. No, you're not. I've never told her that before. Never said that. Never thought about it. You know, I've said, nah, I'll quit drinking, or I've done the 60-day challenge, or the 90-day no drink. I've done that. When I work night shift, I don't drink anyway. So 7 days a month, I don't drink. But on the other 14, I do every day. I drink until it's 10 o'clock at night, and then I wake up in the morning with a hangover and pissed off at myself for drinking so much the night before. And now I'm bitter and angry throughout the day, and I feel like shit. But then closer to the end of my shift, I feel okay, so I'm going to go home and have one. I'll just have one. Well, one turns into 14, and now it's 10 o'clock at night again.
Right.
You know, so that was the cycle I was in for a lot of years. Decades. A lot of decades. But when I came home and told her that I was going to rehab, she didn't call me a liar. She just didn't believe it. She's like, this is just him saying, I promise, honey, I'll change. I'll promise, honey, I'll change. Well, every woman who's had, or every man who's had a significant other that said that, it's bullshit. You're lying just to get what you want. And I showed her the itinerary on my phone. I said, I'm going, I'm leaving Thursday afternoon. I was gone for 43 days. I did my proper fill out paperwork at work, you know, FMLA, insurance was all there. It, you know, was all set, done. My job is safe. And I went to rehab, you know. I flew to Florida. I went through this is in the peak of COVID.
Right.
I flew through 4 different huge airports and never caught COVID. Although they make you wear a mask on the plane, but I walked through every airport there was. That was $1 million or a million person, you know, airport, and I never caught COVID. But I got down there, and they make you sit into a 14-day, not a quarantine, but a detox, because they don't know what you're in.
Yeah.
They don't know you as a person.
Right.
I went there sober because I stopped drinking on the 17th of July, and I went down there on the 20th. So I had already been 3 days sober, but they treat you as if you're hammered when you get there.
Right.
You know, it's cavity search, and they're looking for drugs and your underarm stuff, and they're looking for, you know, they don't want the responsibility of you overdosing or, you know, hurting yourself or whatever. So I went from there, the Daylight Recovery Center in Fort Lauderdale, and I spent 2 weeks there and learned a lot for the 2 weeks of first sobriety. And it was a little bit of therapy in there too, but that was an eye-opener. And then when I was done with that, then they asked where I wanted to go, and I went to a place in Jupiter, Florida called HEAL, H-E-A-L, which stands for something. It's an acronym of something. And it was a $30 million home filled with 20 people that were all there for rehab. I was the oldest person there by 15 years. I was the only guy from Wisconsin. And I was one of only 2 people there for drinking. The rest of these people that were there were under the age of 30 by far, most of them in their 20s, who were spoiled fucking brats who got caught snorting grandpa's pain pills on Easter one day, and dad took their Corvette away unless they go to rehab. So not only did I have nothing in common with these people, I was bitter and angry at these pussies. You know, you got a problem? You think you have a fucking problem because you're 23 and like to snort ecstasy? Fuck you. You know, I drank every day of my life for 35 years, and hard and heavy, along with the cocaine and the acid and the, you know, whatever. But these assholes are telling me that they got a problem and they need the same help I do? No. You know, it was a shit show.
But you got through it.
I did. I got through it. you know, I got through it. I spent 40 days there, and I learned a lot about my childhood. Things that I was burying, things that I was covering up and masking, with alcohol, with drugs, with notoriety, proving, wearing that rock star mask. I had to write a letter saying goodbye to that mask because I don't need it anymore, you know. And I came home sober, with a full beard. You know, I didn't shave for 40 days for a reason. You know, the whole 40 days I didn't shave. I didn't get a haircut. I don't care. I'm gonna fix myself when I get better, and I'm gonna clean up.
How did your wife respond when you came back?
She was almost in tears, appreciative, proud. Proud, I'm sure. You know, I would let her say whatever adjective she wants to use, but my kids were very proud.
What did that feel like for you?
Oh, man, it was gratifying, but still heartbreaking to know that I had to do that to get that out of them.
Right.
You know, but now I go to AA meetings, a few a week, sometimes one every other week because of my work schedule, just how it works. And I like it. I go to the same one. I don't go to multiples anymore. I did at first. I went to a bunch to see which one I liked the best, which clientele I liked or I hooked up with the best or clicked with. But I found the one I like, and I'll continue to go.
Now, initially you had to get rid of your bikes and all your drums and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of hard to do?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. That was my life. You know, really, that was. Playing the drums was my entire life outside of my family. You know, I had been doing it since an early teenager. So not having that to fall back on as a crutch was okay because I knew it would lead to me wanting to drink. So it was a bitter pill. You know, I was glad I got rid of the motorcycle for the time being because it brought back some memories of when I was divorced. Some of those memories were pretty bitter.
Sure.
And I got rid of that motorcycle because it reminded me of that window of my life where it was just filled with bad decisions.
Now you were able to bring them back. Do you feel like you've progressed to a point where?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I haven't played the drums. This is the longest I haven't played the drums in my entire life. This is also the longest I've been sober in my entire life. But, you know, the whole motorcycle thing, you know, whatever. It is what it is, I guess. I'll always have something fun, a toy, a hot rod car, you know, something like that, or a loud stereo in my truck, but, you know, the drums may come back to me. But I think the motorcycles will be there just because it's something that I enjoy to do, to get away and just be free and, you know, get the wind in your hair and you know, when you're out on the road, you can just you can scream. You can do that in a car too, I guess, or on a mountain bike or running in the forest, or you can do that. But that's just my way of doing it. You know, I spent more on my stereo on my motorcycle than some people have invested in their entire motorcycle.
Right.
So I'm a music guy at heart, no matter
Sure.
what it is. I mean, in my shop, I've got old Technique speakers sitting up on the ceiling that I can crank this garage up wide open. You know.
Speaking of, so did you really dive into woodwork when you came back?
Yeah, that was a lifesaver for me. This Skeeters Woodshop. Skeeter was my nickname as a kid. My aunt used to call me that. And the whole cutting board thing for my sisters turned into Skeeter's Woodshop, you know. And my buddy Andy Bartelt, who runs the insurance company that I deal with,
oh yeah,
he's like, hey man, you're gonna be doing this, man. You should get insured and just start a business. I'm like, well, I guess, you know, you know, why not? I mean, he's a very successful person. Why wouldn't I listen to him? You know, shit, yeah, I'll do it. What does it cost? You know, so I went and got insurance, and you know, I'm a sole proprietor business. I'm in, you know, I've got everything covered. You know, I even got fire extinguishers. You know, I would have never done that as a drinker. I'd be like, fuck, I'll just throw the beer on it.
You're right.
You know, I would have never went out and asked for fire suppression, you know, from a friend or anything, you know. But you know, I'm doing it the right way.
Why don't you show that board to the
Yeah,
people?
this is one of them.
I know you guys listening can't see them, but for the YouTube audience,
Yeah, this one here is one that I made for a client, and it didn't fit their cabinet where they wanted to store it, so I ended up keeping it. Yeah, this one is, I mean, I use a lot of cool woods, everything from local black walnut to African padu and wenge. Some of this stuff is just beautiful once you get, you know, and some people think, well, how did you dye that a different color like that? You know, no, that's not dyed. That's the real wood. That's what it looks like when you polish it up and cut it smooth. And
you remember in the 90s it was common, maybe not that many wood types, but it was common to have 2 or 3 wood types, like a base body.
Sure,
I remember that was kind of a thing back then.
And I actually went as far as diving into the cribbage board world.
Yeah.
And I made a couple really nice guitar-shaped cribbage boards with actual life-size or real-size guitar bodies that I got from Jeff at Sandbaum Guitars. I used his bodies as a shape and a pattern, and I turned those into really cool exotic cribbage boards.
That guy's a hell of a player, huh?
Yeah, oh man, and him and I go way back to the early 90s when I first came back to Wausau as a failed musician in a big city. When I came back here, he and I hooked up and we've jammed, never in a band together, but we've jammed continuously throughout the years, you know, with each other. We know each other when he first had his kids and I had my kids, and you know, we grew up in this area together, fairly close friends. So yeah, he's really cool. But yeah, everything from cribbage boards to cutting boards, and I'm making coasters and
yeah, I saw those when I came over. Those are pretty cool looking.
yeah, you know, a little bit of everything. And if it wasn't for this, adding a tool, adding a, you know, a $1,000 this and a $400 that adds up quick.
Yeah.
But if I wouldn't be doing that, would I be at the bar? You know, would I be pissing away $60 a day?
Yeah, I was gonna say that was quick too. So
Yeah.
Probably a wash, if not.
Oh.
You might be coming out.
On the other side of it, I'm coming out.
Well, plus you're selling stuff too, so.
Right. You know, and that
more
takes a while to
productive.
get over that hump of, you know, the getting into the black versus, you know, being in the red. And I think I'm still in the red because I had to invest quite a bit of, you know, equipment and heaters and exhaust equipment and stuff. But
So are you hoping that this one day will be like the primary thing that you do?
I think it will be, but I won't make the decision to leave my job. I'll leave my job when the time comes. Retire. You know, if I can monetarily, if I can retire at 62, sure. You know, I'm 51 already, so that ain't that many years.
Right.
And you know, building this in a 10-year window, to building it to get a clientele base, or you know, to find my niche where I'm not making 15 different things, where I just find it and go, okay, I'm gonna focus on American flags. People are buying American flags like crazy. You know, whether it's to hide a gun or to put on a wall or to put on your deck out by the pool, a nice, you know, an outdoor decoration. But, you know, maybe I'll find something that ultimately will replace my work, because I'll have to work until I die. That's just me.
You like to keep it busy.
I'll have to. I mean, you know, if I would have gotten shut down for COVID for 2 weeks for any reason, because I came in contact or they wouldn't let me go to work, I don't even know what I would have done. I mean, I really don't. I would have been out here all the time, you know, for sure, but...
So you didn't have any period of time at the mill where...
Nope.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, there were people that did. Nobody got real sick or sick from it. It was just people that came in contact with a person and then they had to quarantine themselves. So, but yeah, it was a really cool opportunity for me, or I shouldn't say that, not a cool opportunity, but just it was a very good season for me health-wise. You know, I never came down with it. I never got anything.
Yeah, I was just thinking I haven't been sick for like 2 years.
Yeah.
until I got my second COVID shot on Sunday.
Okay.
That one or on I got it on Saturday, and I was like out for the count on
really?
Sunday. Oh yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it like took me down for a couple days.
And was that just something that you chose to do? I mean, just because you see a lot of public people and you're doing.
Yeah, I figure I should probably get the vaccine.
Yeah. Okay.
So I can start going out and doing things with
Right.
people and not having to worry about wearing the mask all the time.
Right. And I haven't been going out. You know, I mean, my Harley, my old Harley, would pull into a bar all by itself.
Oh yeah, right.
You know,
Right.
you know, the bikes that I've bought in the past few weeks since the weather's been nice, I'm trying to find the right one. And
Yeah, the one I saw, it's more of a crotch rocker type
yeah,
bike,
more of
yeah.
a street fighter, more of an aggressive. It's like a dirt bike with street tires on
What
it.
was that? I didn't even look at
It's
it.
a Yamaha
Oh, Yamaha.
MT-07.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a pretty badass machine, but I'm a little too old for that. You know.
Well, I was gonna ask, Harley people usually get super loyal to Harley and they can't
Yeah,
ride anything
right.
else, but
That's why I'm selling that one, because I've got my eye on another Harley.
you gotta go back to Harley.
So, I'm gonna go back to the Harley world for sure.
I know one guy was really into BMW motorcycles
Oh,
and
yeah.
he swore by them.
Yeah. Oh, and they're great
Supposedly
running
they're really
machines.
good, yeah.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
reliable as can get. You know.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, a lot of the foreign machines, even Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, they all run flawlessly. The only reason a person gets on a Harley is because of the way they sound and the way they feel. You know, a Kawasaki 1500 sounds and looks different than a Harley 1450. They're just two different bikes. You know.
Yeah, I heard a story. I don't know if it was. I think it was Clint Eastwood back in the day. Like, he had a bunch of friends that had motorcycles, and he showed up with like a Yamaha, and all his friends made fun of him. So he went out and sold it. And got a Harley right away. I think it was Clint Eastwood. Maybe it was Harrison Ford. I don't know. It was someone from that era.
Sure.
But yeah, I kind of got a kick out of that. So
Yeah.
are you selling online? Is that?
Yeah, I did have an Etsy shop for a while, which I used more or less as a virtual showroom, because everything I make is custom.
Yeah.
There's no two alike. I mean, they may be similar, but I don't take I don't take measurements on everything that I cut. So I mean, if it looks good, I'll just cut it to that width and use it. You know. So
Makes sense.
and when I had 15 or 20 things posted up on Etsy, people would contact me saying, yes, I'd like that. Well, you can't get that. If you would have read a little further, it would have said, you will not get this piece. I can make you one just like it for the same amount of money, but it will be similar, not exact. So then I phased myself out of that. It just wasn't doing much good for me. So word of mouth, my Instagram account is just kick ass. I mean, the guys that in the world of woodworking, we have our own little group,
Oh yeah.
and then we share each other's stuff, and I don't have a shit ton of followers, but the ones that I do are loyal to a wood shop. Is that gonna bother? Should I turn that off?
That's okay. We're gonna wrap up pretty quick.
Okay.
But I was just gonna say, if like people want to follow you, how should they do it?
Well, Skeeters Woodshop on Facebook, Skeeters Woodshop, everything will be Skeeters Woodshop. Instagram, I don't have a Twitter account. I don't know why, I just never really got into that.
Instagram makes more sense for something like that.
Yeah,
anyway. It's a
absolutely.
real visual medium. So.
Yeah, and I still have an Etsy page, and I do have a .com, SkeetersWoodshop.com, and that's just for communication between a new client and me. There's really nothing to buy. It's not an e-commerce site. It's just a way to communicate, to connect between me and a potential new customer.
Yeah.
But yeah, Facebook, social media, it's all really. I don't even. It's getting to the point where I'm happy, I'm busy, and I have to say no sometimes because there's just too much. The bench is only so big,
Right.
and I can't have a list of things a mile long because then one loses attention.
Yeah.
You know, I want to pay as much of attention to one project as I can before I start another one, so that way everybody gets the best product they can for their budget. You know?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
You know, some of this stuff is not cheap, but they're not stuff you throw away either. They're heirlooms that you hand down to your kids.
Right.
You know, a $300 cutting board. Not everybody wants to buy a $300 cutting board,
That's true.
but it's a nice wedding present for a new couple. You know, or an anniversary present. You know, so and
Well, that's the trick, I guess, right? Like if your list starts getting too long, you just raise your prices.
right.
and then the list
Right.
gets shorter.
Yeah, well, I did
And
offer.
if you make more money from the ones that you again.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, that is true. And I did offer myself as like a handyman service for the southeast side.
Oh yeah.
Because we're on, you know, the southeast side Facebook page, and as soon as I posted that video, I mean, my phone didn't stop ringing because people wanted help. Everything from, you know, moving a ceiling fan from one room to the other, or getting rid of this one, and you know, can you replace my bathroom fan, or can you put new steps on for me, or a storm door? Absolutely, all those things I can help with. But the one thing I don't want to do is spend 2 weeks at your place building you a deck. That's not something I mean, I can do it because I built my own.
Right.
But I'd rather have the couple hour in and out. If you want a bush ripped out and some mulch put over the top of it, I can help you with that. But I'm not going to landscape your whole yard up north, you know, for 2 weeks traveling back and forth. That's just not something I'm interested in. So, but yeah, handyman stuff is okay. But the cutting boards, the coasters, the wood stuff, that's the stuff I want to stick to.
Skeeters Woodshop on Instagram and Etsy, and also SkeetersWoodshop.com. So check him out. He's got good stuff, and it's pretty cool. Well, Scott, hey, thanks so much for being on the
Thank you.
show today.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great talking. I enjoyed meeting you when I came over. That what was it, three weeks ago, a month ago, something like
about
that?
a month ago, I had that first little sale.
About a month ago, and I thought, oh, this is gonna be a good podcast guest and a good
Right.
story for City Pages at
Cool.
some point too.
I
so.
appreciate that. Yeah, that'd be great. Welcome to Skeeters Woodshop.
Yeah, come on, check it out, guys. Hey, thanks so much for watching the show, and I always end the show by saying, keep it Wausome, so keep it Wausome, Scott.
Keep it Wausome.
All right, you guys keep it Wausome out there too, and we'll see you next time.
Cool.